I don't know about you guys, but I usually feel one of two ways after a long vacation. Either I'm ready to go back into my routine and I'm ready to get back into my consistent schedule, or I'm really not ready to do either of those things. Welcome to Find Your Power podcast. I am your host, Avery Jane. In today's episode, I'm going to dive into the reality of transitioning back into your routine or your schedule or your work life after a long vacation or break, and why it can be so hard, why it's challenging, but also I'm going to give you guys a few tips on how to make this transition easier because I think it's very important to kind of realize some ways that you can do this because it's going to be hard almost every time. Like I said, you either feel one of the two ways. If you're not feeling motivated to get back into your routine, it's going to be very hard to do so unless you have some discipline. So, we're also going to touch on having discipline today and some ways that you can incorporate habits into your routine to make it easier for you to transition after vacation or breaks. The reality of the situation is it's very hard to return to routine after vacation, breaks, or just long periods of rest in general. And if you're feeling like this time is very challenging for you as well, this does not have anything to do with you being lazy. It's simply that you're transitioning from a time of rest, a time of freedom, or vacation, whatever you want to call it, back to your schedule and back to your routine. And maybe even back to real responsibilities that you didn't necessarily have during your break. So, for this episode, I'm going to talk about how discipline can be a lot more useful than motivation in a lot of these times. And this doesn't only apply to day to day life, going back to routine after vacation. This can also apply to many other aspects of your life. Maybe that's your career, maybe that's the gym. It can really be applied to anything in your life that you want to build consistency with, but you may not always have that motivation. It really comes down to when you want to have goals, when you want to build habits, and you're not always going to feel motivated to do those things. Maybe in the very beginning of the year you will, and that's also why I'm making this episode now. But later on, as the year goes on, as the months pass, that fresh new year motivation starts to fade. And that's when it boils down to needing discipline. Routine can feel very hard after time off, and this is mostly because vacation mode in your mind is a very different mentality than your reality mode, as you may want to call it, or just your routine, your schedule normally with work and your regular responsibilities. Because when you're on that vacation mode or relaxation, you don't have as much structure. Maybe you're staying out late and going to bed late, waking up later. And also, maybe you just have little to no pressure on the things that you need to get done because you really don't have anything that you need to get done in that moment. It's more, play it by ear, go with the flow, whatever you want to call it. And when you're in that mentality, it's really hard to just flip the switch and go back to, all right, wake up at 7 a.m., go to bed at 10 p.m., you know, lunch, breakfast this time, lunch this time, dinner this time, and very set routine, right? This could honestly be considered like a dopamine reset because your brain really wants that rest and it doesn't want effort, it wants ease, right? And when you're on vacation, when you're in that rest mode, your brain is almost getting that reset because you don't have as much things that you usually have to do. I mean, I'm talking about a more traditional sense of vacation, a more traditional sense of relaxation time period because of course there's going to be some vacations where you plan back to back to back itinerary. It's really not so relaxing, it's more fun, but still at the same time it's a moment when your responsibilities aren't there and you still have a sense of freedom that you aren't going to have in your normal reality, your day-to-day schedule. And when I'm talking about this, I really would like to share with you guys my personal experience with this because what kind of inspired this episode in the first place is that after these past holidays with Christmas and New Year's, I had a very hard time kind of transitioning back into reality, into my routine, into starting back at school. And this honestly can happen during a lot of those big breaks, whether that's Christmas, winter break, or spring break, summer break, any of those, honestly, even Thanksgiving if you live in the US. Because if you're a college student, then going through these long breaks is usually really nice, in which you don't have classes, you don't have as many responsibilities. Maybe you're still going to work, like your part time job or something, but it's a lot less on your plate. It's a lot less on your schedule, usually. And I know that I'm not alone on this. I had some friends going through this as well this past winter break because we got so used to going to bed so late, waking up late, just having that freedom. And it's really hard to kind of transition back sometimes. And this time, I was not in the mindset of ready to get back into routine, ready to go back into my schedule, which sometimes I really am. Sometimes I really am ready for that because sometimes I do get kind of tired of the chaos of vacation, the lack of an orderly routine or schedule, but this time I wasn't really sick of it yet, and it was already time to go back into routine. So that's kind of what inspired this episode. I want you guys to know that if you're feeling this way, or if you have felt this way this past winter break, or maybe if you're listening to this after some other break, whether it's spring break, summer break, whatever kind of holiday break time that you had, maybe it was just a random vacation that you'd planned. I think it's also very normal for people to get that kind of, I think it's called like after vacation depression, something like along those lines, almost like a post concert depression, something like that. Because especially, I feel like it's so much worse when you are looking forward to this kind of break or vacation for a long period of time, and then you have it, and then afterwards you have to go back into your routine, into your schedule, and maybe you don't have that big vacation or break to look forward to anymore. And I think that's another part that makes it really hard. It's going to probably make you feel upset, and that's totally okay. I think it's very normal, and a lot of people go through that. I know that I definitely did with my winter break. I did have a vacation to Chicago. It was my first time ever going. It was a really amazing trip, but after that trip, I did feel kind of upset because that trip had been planned for a few months. We'd been excited about it for months, and then we get back and it's gone. And I think when that happens, it's really good to try to find something that you are looking forward to in the future, because I think as humans, especially when we have set routines and schedules like that, it's something that we really need. And of course, it doesn't have to always be like this huge vacation that's a week long, going out of the country or to a big city. It doesn't always need to be like that because that's maybe not realistic for everybody. But at the same time, you can do something like small. Maybe you plan a day trip for a random Saturday or Sunday in a month or so that you realize you can have the day off, and you just go on a mini road trip somewhere. Maybe it's an hour away. You plan it with a friend, you plan it with a significant other, whatever you want to do. Just something to look forward to is always really nice to have a plan after you get back from a long vacation that you were looking forward to for a while. Just because even if it is little, it's something that is nice to look forward to. So, when it comes to getting back into the routine, now that you have something to look forward to, now it's time to actually start getting back into what you have to do, your responsibilities. When it comes to this, discipline is going to be very important because we can't always rely on motivation, because this is very emotional and a lot of times very inconsistent. You're going to feel motivation in the start of the month, in the start of the year, sometimes even in the start of the week or the start of the day. But what about as the year goes on or the month that goes on and you want to keep those consistent habits that you're trying to build? The way to do that is building discipline. And discipline is built on habits and systems. I did talk about this a lot in my goals and accomplishments for the new year, leveling up episode, because we did talk about building habits and systems in that. If you guys didn't listen to that episode, you can go back and check that out. I touch more on systems and building habits in that episode. But to just branch off a little bit from that, basically, the system is the thing that you build the habit around to keep the habit in your life. So, for example, if you want to incorporate stretching into your routine, I think this is an example I used in the last one, then maybe you start to say that you will stretch for 3 minutes after you brush your teeth. So, something like that that kind of ties in a new habit to something that you already have as your habit now, and that builds these systems that will remain in place even when you don't have the motivation to do the stretching. After you brush your teeth, you're going to think, oh, okay, it's time for the stretching, even if you aren't motivated, because at that point, it's a system in your life and in your daily routine. So, that being said, that's why discipline is very important, because the routine and discipline is what's going to carry you when motivation disappears. So, going back to kind of how I felt after this past winter break, I was waiting for the motivation to get back into my routine, to go back to my classes, to start my studying, all of those kind of things. And the motivation didn't quite come. And I was kind of waiting for it. Then, when I realized that I wasn't really as motivated as I was hoping to be, I had to kind of develop the discipline, had to kind of take action anyways, in ways that I could without completely burning myself out. So, some tips on things that I find helpful. I think that finding ways to romanticize the things that you need to do, like your responsibilities in your life, is a very helpful way to kind of make that transition back into your routine, because when you're on vacation or on a break, you are romanticizing a lot more things in your life usually because it's all new. Maybe you're visiting a new city, a new country, a new state, whatever it may be. You're seeing new environments, you are trying new foods, trying new drinks. All these things are very romanticized because you get to do all of these new things and you're on vacation and it's everything's beautiful. So when you come back to reality and your routine, you're going to feel maybe like things are very dull. And I think that when it comes to getting back into your responsibilities, it's very helpful to find a way to make those duller things in your life shine a little bit more. Those things that you have to do to keep your responsibilities going, keep your routine going, make those more shiny, make them more admirable. So, for example, maybe that's going to a coffee shop to get your work done, or your favorite place to study if you need to work on your computer or you need to study your textbooks for school, whatever you need to do. Maybe changing up the environment or going to a place that you know you already really enjoy, or you already know you study very well there, or maybe you just really like the environment. Going to a different location to do that may be helpful. Another way that you could maybe romanticize going back to your responsibilities, this one might not be for everyone, but I found it very helpful sometimes. And that's spending a bit of time to decorate your work or school supplies. This is something that I actually used to do with my sisters when I was growing up. When we would start school back again after the summer break, our mom would take us shopping for school supplies, notebooks, pencils, paper, all that kind of stuff. And usually we would get like the cheap, dull ones because we loved to go back home and take like an hour or two, almost like scrapbooking, except we would decorate the cover of the notebook. Maybe we would put duct tape around the pencils, or maybe we would decorate the pencil box, just little things like that. And I know that might sound kind of childish, but if you're in college or even if you have a job where you use your laptop every day, maybe that's just getting a new laptop case. I actually did that during Christmas as well, and I find that it honestly helps you start to use your materials more because they look new even if they're not. Or you could also buy new materials if you're looking to do that as well. Actually did that today for myself. Going back to school, I needed to go ahead and get some new notebooks, some new pens, new pencils, and I find that buying the things that I know that I really like to use the most. It's going to motivate me a little bit more to use them and therefore motivate me to actually study and do the work that I need to do. So, things like that, whether it's getting new ones or decorating the ones that you have, getting new case for your electronics, something around that could also help you. And the last tip I have with romanticizing things, stepping away from the work or studying, maybe the thing that you're feeling not as motivated to do once you get back from vacation is going to the gym, going for walks, going for runs, or however you like to work out or move your body. And doing those things just doesn't seem like something that you want to do once you get back from vacation, because maybe on vacation you were moving your body in different ways, going for walks around a big city or a new place, and then when you get back to your home, it doesn't feel as fun to go and work out, go for a walk, go for a run, whatever it is. Well, my tip for this one is maybe try a new gym. Maybe get a new gym membership if that's realistic for you. If not, maybe you could even just try a new workout class at your gym or at a new one nearby, just the workout class, not the membership. Or even if you don't have a gym membership, you could always just find a new workout to try, maybe something different. If you usually do weightlifting, maybe you try Pilates or vice versa. Maybe if you usually go for runs, you try a walk or vice versa. Something like that, just to kind of switch it up and try something new. It might motivate you to either do those new things or go back to what you usually do if you find that you like that better. When it comes to going back into your routine, it's really important to start small and kind of rebuild your routine without burning yourself out. If you jump back into your full routine, your full perfect ideal routines, wake up 5 a.m., go to the gym, come home, shower, do your work, yada, 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 perfect schedule. If you try to jump back into something like that and you're not feeling motivated, you might get burnt out doing that. So, a good way to kind of ease yourself into it is choosing 1 to 3 non negotiable habits that you need to incorporate back into your routine. Maybe that's sleep, movement, or your planning and scheduling for your week. Doing small things like that to get started and then building off of that is going to really help you after a few days of consistency and not being too intense on your own schedule. Taking a little extra time to rest is totally okay once you get back from your vacation. When you're trying to get back into your routine, I think it's important to give yourself a little bit more time to rest and maybe to go a little bit slower than you might normally go. And that's okay, that's normal. So, for my personal bare minimum routine, when I got back from my winter break and I kind of was trying to get back into my routine and I didn't have that motivation, I found it most helpful to kind of do small things like keeping my house clean, maybe slowly getting my sleep schedule back on track, although it's still kind of getting there, but we're working on it. And, doing things to prepare for the upcoming weeks. Maybe that's getting groceries or running errands that I needed to run. Those are things that really kind of helped me get started back into my routine, but didn't make me feel burnt out because I wasn't doing too many things at once. Lowering the bar for yourself when you're just getting back adjusted is totally okay. Knowing yourself and knowing that you are probably going to feel less motivated and more tired when you return from your vacation, I think it's important that you kind of know that your bar is going to be lowered when you return. And knowing this, you can prepare before you actually leave and go on a vacation or just have a break. Maybe that's cleaning your house before you leave. That's something that I really try to prioritize because when I get home, I don't want to have that on my plate of cleaning my house after the vacation. So, doing that before I leave makes me feel a lot more relieved when I get home to a clean house. Even when doing all of these things, it's realistic to consider that we might not always be spot on with our routine. There's a chance that we may need to kind of reevaluate and reset if we start to fall off and realize that we need more rest than we thought we needed. And that's okay. You just have to kind of ease yourself back into it. So maybe you have reset moments where you kind of let yourself get a little extra rest in, whether that makes sense for you in the morning or in the evening or in the afternoon. When you get back and you're doing all of these things into your routine, maybe you give yourself an extra 30 minutes to kind of rest or do what you need to do to recharge. And for me personally, when I find myself kind of getting off track of my routine or my schedule, or maybe I just don't feel motivated to start in the first place, I find it very helpful to make to-do lists. I like to just make them in my notes app on my phone. Something very simple I can just do. And I actually did this for this past winter break. On the car ride back from my last little trip I had, I was starting to feel upset already because I knew that I was going to be getting back into my routine and that my break was coming to an end. So I pulled out the notes app in my phone and I honestly just bullet pointed some things that I wanted to get done. And I like to include easy things in there as well. Of course, I include things that I do want to get done that are not so easy. But I also like to include more simple things because that's going to motivate you more when you can check off all of the things that you did, even if it's as simple as making dinner for myself or taking out the trash or even just doing laundry. Little things like that I will include on the list as well as bigger responsibilities that I might have because those are going to that's really going to push me forward when I see myself able to check off things on that list, and it will make me want to complete the list even more. And that's something I had to kind of learn about myself is that putting too many demanding things on my to-do list doesn't exactly work for me. And maybe it would work for you, but for me personally, I need to put some simpler things on there as well to keep me going and keep me motivated to complete the list. So, even if you are not coming off of a vacation, maybe you're feeling less motivation after you've just been in your same routine for a while. Maybe it's not post vacation, maybe it's just starting to be burnout. And that's when discipline becomes very important in what you may call low energy season. This means that your routine could look different in many seasons of your life, and that's okay. I think it's important to kind of reevaluate your routine, especially where you're at in life and how you're feeling. And also, depending on other challenges that you're facing, it's okay to adjust your routine and your schedule depending on these things. I want to remind you guys that rest is not failure, it's usually preparation, and it's really good to recharge, to rest your body and your mind because you're going to be even more productive in the aftermath of that, and that's why I like to call it preparation. It's also important to adjust to these routines and your schedule based on the energy that you're feeling and not just on your expectations because those can lead to burnout. And like I said, you need to give yourself a lot more grace when you're coming off of vacation or even just a low energy season, a time when you're not feeling as motivated and you need a little extra discipline. So I think something important to reflect on and ask yourself every once in a while, maybe this is every few weeks or every few months, depending on who you are and your life, you can ask yourself, what does discipline look like right now for me? And even you can even think about this question now and journal about this maybe today because asking yourself this question can be very important to come back to because it's not always going to be the same answer. I do want to go ahead and give you guys a few mindset shifts that can make your routine easier and try to incorporate these into your life when you are trying to adjust. So, routine is self respect, it's not restriction. You don't need to feel ready to act, you just need to start somewhere. And momentum and motivation come after action, usually. And this is something that I think we forget a lot of times. I forgot this after my winter break. I was feeling upset that I wasn't motivated. And then I started somewhere and I went ahead with my little to do list, my routine, trying to get back into it very slowly. And that's when I started to feel more motivated and I started to build my momentum back. A mindset shift for me personally that changed how I view discipline is that discipline doesn't always mean going as hard as you can and always giving 110%. It can mean staying consistent with just little or simpler, easy things. It doesn't always have to lead to burnout. And I think when people think discipline, they usually think something that might lead to burnout. But it doesn't always have to lead to burnout. It can be more of a slow process. It doesn't have to be so fast paced. And it also doesn't have to be so hard. So, to kind of end off the episode, I do want to give you guys some practical reset plans and some maybe simple action steps that you can take. So, try picking one anchor habit to start tomorrow. This is one habit that maybe sets your routine together. The big thing in your routine, maybe that's going for your walk that you usually go for after you get home from work. Or maybe this is getting back into the habit of cooking your own meals at home, something that you may have not done so much during your vacation. Something like that that you can start tomorrow that you haven't quite gotten back into your routine yet. That's going to put an anchor to really start back in your routine. And I also encourage you guys to track your consistency, not your perfection, because it's very important when it comes to discipline to just be consistent and it doesn't always have to be perfect. I really like the quote that goes something like, you just have to start and then make it good. Because it's true that once you start, you're going to be more motivated to keep going and also to perfect your habit or your routine once it's already started. It's a lot harder to jump right into perfection, and usually that's not very realistic either. I also want to encourage you guys to write down your reset routine or maybe your to do list, like I had, and whether this is on paper or you can even do it in your notes app, just something simple that you can check off or maybe mark off once you're finished. And also, I want to encourage you guys to just come back to this episode whenever you need it. It's always here to listen to. If you find yourself feeling down after a vacation or a break, you can always revisit this. It'll be here for you. Just know that falling off of routine, especially when you're going on to vacation or during slow or low energy seasons, it's totally normal and it's okay to fall off your routines. It's just important on how you take the step to get back into it. Discipline is also built through repetition. Like I've said many times, consistency and repetition, not always motivation. So don't always count on that to get started. That about wraps up the episode. Like I always say, if you're feeling stuck right now, it's not a forever thing. You're also not alone, and everyone has gone through stagnant moments in their life. They have gotten through it just as you will now. Thank you guys so much for listening. Tune in every Thursday to watch or listen on YouTube or Spotify. And I'm also on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, and Audible for audio only. Make sure to check out the Instagram or TikTok at findyourpower_podcast. And feel free to DM me there as well. Thank you guys again so much. I appreciate you for tuning in and spending your time with me today. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please rate the podcast 5 stars on Apple or Spotify or leave a comment or review. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel if you do listen on YouTube. All of this will really help the podcast grow. And if you have somebody in your life that you think could really benefit from this episode or even the podcast in general, please send it over to them. We do not gatekeep here, and they really might thank you later for it. And lastly, if you would like to be featured for an interview, please send me an email at the email linked in the description of the podcast, or you can shoot me a DM on the Instagram as well. I will talk to you guys again very soon, and don't forget, we will find your power.